Allora, so before Carlos kicks off, I quickly would like to give them a quick minute to introduce themselves so you know who's sitting here, if you didn't know it already. But for the people who don't, then we'll kick off with a quick minute for them to introduce themselves, and then Carlos, you are more than happy to start kicking off this beautiful event. So let's see if your microphone is working.
One. Okay.
It is working. So
It is working.
Please.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much, Vida. And it's a great pleasure to be together again here in Lisbon and to see such a lovely audience. My name is Carlos Paulino. I'm the managing director of Equinix Portugal. Basically, Equinix sees as the digital world infrastructure, and we have around 245 data centers around the world. And I'm delighted to really promote and help promoting this event to really bring Portugal to the spotlight and to show the strategic value we can have on the development of a more digitalized world.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And again, thank you very much to you and to Equinix, the whole team. All right, Aki.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Aki Jules. I'm a senior partner at Cambridge Management Consulting, the interesting consulting company because we don't have any consultants. We're all coming from the industry, so we only hire experts. Cambridge is now operating in 19 countries. We have about 150 people, and I'm heading the subsea business for Cambridge, advising different customers, like I'm working right now on the subsea project from Europe to Japan via the Arctic Ocean. We just recently won a domestic submarine cable project in Turks and Caicos in Caribbean, which just came on Saturday. But nice to see you all here.
Okay, thank you so much, and good having you. Now let's go to the other side of the thing. So please. Please.
So good morning to all of you. First of all, say that it's a pleasure to share this panel with all of you, particularly with Jose and with Carlos. The three of us have been pushing the Portuguese ecosystem for a while, and so it's a pleasure. But it's also a pleasure to see such an audience. To be honest, to have this in Lisbon, in our home country, and with such an amount of people believing that what is happening in Lisbon is something that we should look into, and that is business for all of us. So to say thank you for that. I'm heading the international wholesale division in Portugal for Altis. Altis is a telecom, media, and advertising company with a presence in 6 main territories, in USA, in Dominican, Israel, in France, now also with investments in the UK and here in Portugal. So thank you all, and please enjoy yourselves.
Thank you so much. And now we go to Jose.
Good morning, all. My name is José Barros, and I came from ANACOM, the Portuguese regulator. My job in ANACOM is some kind of being some kind of advisor for international connectivity and submarine cables. What is my main concern is to help to develop the sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, we go virtual. And Takahiro, good day to you, and thank you for being here, please.
Hi, my name is Takahiro Sumimoto. I'm SVP Marine Cable at NTT Limited, and I also serve as CEO of Pacific Crossing, the owner and operator of the Trans-Pacific Cable PC1. As I'm head of submarine cable business of NTT Limited, and NTT has 13 submarine cable systems directly owning the cable or participating in the consortium. Thank you for having me at this conference. Thank you.
Welcome and great having you, Takahira, as always. So, ladies and gentlemen, we were discussing the new business models and investment strategies to meet the cable's future digital demand. Yes. So, but foremost, I think the importance of Lisbon as a strategic landing point and hub connecting the Mediterranean region and the Africa continent. And for this, we're more than happy to listen to a keynote presentation from Equinix from you, Carlos. And what are you going to talk about?
Well, really give main panorama of what are we doing, or what comes next, what is really the role of Portugal in these new exciting times where connectivity is key to develop the world and the digital services at the speed that we all want. So let me try.
Okay, well, I'm sure you will succeed. So thank you very much. And if I may invite you to go to the stand, and then we're gonna listen to you and maybe to the audience. If you have some questions afterwards, then please let's. I mean, we have people running around with microphones if needed. So all the questions are there. And if you want to catch him now lively, then now is the time. So let's see what Carlos has to share with us, please.
Okay, so once again, morning, we welcome. Like I said, we are living exciting times, and Portugal is, like I will show, it's really, during all these years, been a key player on the global landscape in what relates with connectivity. My presentation, and well, I would apologize in advance if I'm going to have some examples taken from our own experience at Equinix, but really trying to give you the wider panorama about the region and the business. Okay, so starting by the importance of the CC-Submarine Summit, the truth is, I open with this image. I believe everybody that is here already knows exactly what I'm talking about, but why is cable so important? They really are the roots to connect the world. They are really the technology and the base technology that interconnects the entire global. And investment in subsea cables, and this is taken from a study ordered by Google. They increase the subsea cable capacity. Of course, it brings latency down. It increases the bandwidth. And the truth is, this generates directly lower costs. It creates immediately the capacity of more developed society. And we know that increasing the consumer welfare also have direct impact on the country GDP. So it's not only the idea of the financial perspective, but really the development of the entire ecosystem and economic as a whole. Portugal has a subsea cable. Well, sorry about the map, it's quite old, but the truth is, story started long ago. We have something like more than 100 years of history in Portugal, interconnecting the world and being really a key location to the first telegraphic lines, as you see in the picture. And we were also known as being one of the first countries to have direct fiber connectivity to all continents. So there are very important landmarks all around the telecom history, where Portugal really is always in the right spot, in the right location to serve and address different regions around the world. This is the past, and the truth is the present couldn't be more exciting. We are living times where we see new cables being deployed in all directions, and if we see the landscape for the next 2 to 3 years, we will see that really the Atlantic and the Mediterranean will see a wave of new investments and new capacity like we have never seen before. The truth is, currently with 11, well, now 12 cables landing in the Lisbon region, and Portugal with connectivity to more than 91 landing stations around 62 countries in the world. Even being a small country, this gives quite an idea of the importance that we have around the global panorama. Well, Portugal attractiveness for business, no doubt Portuguese is the fourth language in the world, covering more than 260 million people. We have direct access to 400,000 plus people in the European community. And this, I believe, is really the main cause why we can be the gateway between Europe and the rest of the Atlantic. Innovation, we are making great steps in innovation, and it's in our DNA. So really new initiatives starting and really consolidating every day. Stability, we are really a country you can trust. It's really up to us to be named as the sixth most secure country in the world, according to the Global Peace Index. Currently, I believe some key drivers that I mentioned here, there is a bold investment plan for renewable energies. No doubt that promoting green digital transformation is really on our heart, and I believe it will be the key for what we will see ahead. There are several initiatives being for digitalization in the country, and the truth is, during our presence on the EU, we have deployed a strategic plan to promote the subsea connectivity. And in Portugal, we have made giant steps. If I compare Portugal 10 years ago, where we are so close and with so many difficulties to really develop new routes, new ways, and I see it now with new projects arising. It's really something that, well, we need to be extremely proud and really continue pushing to increase all the capacity that the world needs in this location. There is also the CAM project rolling to build the Atlantic subsea platform. Let's see how it goes. And of course, we have a talented pool of HR with high skills and language proficiency. In the future, well, lots of new projects coming on, and I put it there from 8 to 880 terabytes. The truth is, we have seen Link really deploying and opening a new highway to Brazil. We have seen Equinix really now starting to deliver capacity to Africa in a way we have never seen before. We have, like, for instance, to Africa also on the plan to interconnect and having Portugal as one of the main touch points in Europe to serve all the west leg. Of course, we are also as Equinix in other locations, and one of the strategic relations we will have the opportunity to discuss this afternoon would be about also Barcelona and Genoa, where this cable will have the east leg connected. We have Medusa, quite a new project that really intends to interconnect Portugal with all the Mediterranean region. Submarine, like I mentioned, the new Atlantic capacity to in a future view interconnect in all directions. And there are several other projects that are really show us the potential, the interest, and what really comes ahead. Now is the right moment. There's no doubt about it. We spoke about it last year, and the truth is we see it growing and growing. And currently, if you see, we know the established hubs of internet use in Africa and Middle East region that are used mostly stromboning. Really, we are channelizing it, like Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, Paris, and Marseille. One of the are the imposed ones. We see newer hubs that will support the internet capacity, and not only support, but really building resilience, building new routes, new options, new capacity. And Lisbon it has quite a long history and tradition, like I mentioned, but Barcelona, Genoa, working with Milan, Bordeaux, we are seeing new hubs appearing on this region to be able to serve all the demand that we are now foreseeing. Technological improvements, no doubt, have made quite an impressive achievements, and we are now seeing cables touching the 500 teras capacity. That is something absolutely amazing. 300 terabits currently is totally mainstream. So basically more and more capacity. It's what we will see in the future. I made a small, not extensive, but an idea of what capacity we will have ahead of us. And if you see the terabytes in each and every cable, this has no possible connection with anything in the past. So we are seeing something that really will build incredible capacity, not only connecting to all the Africa market, but like I mentioned, some of them here also, from Genoa to Barcelona or Dark Sea. We see Blue, we see Amity and Duna entering on the coming from as a transatlantic route. And I hope that in the near future in Portugal, we could also add to this list some transatlantic cable that would indeed interconnect all the capacity coming from the North Atlantic with the South Atlantic. I believe that's something that we should all look forward and work to make it possible. Let's see if it happens. Let's see if we can contribute with this forum to make it happen. I have this diagram that really shows a little bit where we are and what I think we will see in the next 5 years. If you see on your right, you have France, so Marseille, and well, in this graphic, the capacity was around 125 terabits. The truth is, you see a very distributed interconnection ecosystem going in all directions. In Portugal, we are still seeing the major highway going directly to interconnect through Spain and through the other regions in the interior in Europe. The truth is, I believe with more cables adding, we will advance to a more mature model like we see on the right. We have seen it and we have observed it and follow up. And the truth is, we are seeing more and more as new countries joining and start to use this new additional capacity to really be able to make it a more powerful ecosystem, interconnecting all regions and being able to do so in Portugal. From a digital corridor, and that's a discussion that we are having quite currently, it's really, are we seeing only the fibers entering and leaving and really transit through Portugal? Or are we able to really, from this digital corridor, capture all the dividends and all the capacity to develop our geography? There's no doubt carrier neutral facilities are one of the magic sauces to really capture this capacity, this processing capacity, and this capacity of really have the content being used, being produced locally. I believe most of the capacity that we could create on improving our peering and that idea of making it a reservoir of data in Portugal, it's extremely important for the ecosystem to grow and to really produce results also on the local geographies where the cable landing. And well, some major steps I believe already happen also on the submarine cable landing stations, and it's quite more easier, as I've been speaking with players, to really come to Portugal and land a new cable. So a lot of work still to be done, but the truth is we are making really impressive steps to make Portugal, I should say, submarine cable friendly. That's what we all should work for. Of course, geographical location. We know that Lisbon and Portugal as itself, we have a central position between 3 continents. If you look at the evolution of the diagrams, of the network global diagrams, we see in the early days, and not too long ago that most of the cables cross the North Atlantic, usually then connect Lisbon, go around the Iberian Peninsula, and we can see examples like CME3 and interconnect with the East. So basically, this was former routes. Currently, what we are seeing more and more is really entering from one side of the peninsula in Portugal, and on the east side, the capacity of delivering directly through Barcelona to Marseille, to Genova, and really Lisbon can have that absolutely important participation on not only connecting north with south, but being the crossroad also with the east and the west. No doubt, like I said, peering ecosystem components are extremely important. We need to have really the density of content and digital networks, of carriers, of ISPs, and the clouds. Also, the main cloud players have to be here. We have assisted in the last years, and the truth is, we will see it more and more. I will come to that later. Currently, 90% of the internet traffic is privately peering via cross-connect. So I believe that's a very important point where we need indeed to have the capacity to have solutions that can be faster to market, really easy to use, in order to not only build great capacities under the sea, and then when it arrives to land, it's hard to reach, it's hard to use, it's hard to really progress on the usage of those systems. Just a diagram. I believe on the access infrastructure, we have all it takes in Portugal. Sometimes we don't promote it that well. Portugal has that lapse that I believe we are doing it better and better as we go, and currently our capacity, our terrestrial capacity is also a point where I believe we need to show the world what we have and what we can do there. The idea, the content infrastructure, like I said, we are seeing more and more the clouds coming to Portugal and not really using the central hubs in Europe, but coming more to the edge, deploying exactly where the consumers are. So this is really happening as we speak. Becoming a digital hub, exactly what I spoke before, the idea of not only being the trunk that communicates between A and B, but really to be there and be able to build that capacity in operating in Portugal and computational capacity directly in Portugal, and that this would be the key elements to the digital transformation that the world is asking for. Well, Equinix mission is really to connect and to power the digital world. Currently, we have around 10,000 customers. Our uptime is absolutely unmatched, and we are between one of the Fortune 500 companies. So really the infrastructure of the world. Regarding new business models, of course, we are extremely looking for this market and understanding how can we help more. And the truth is, we have developed several approaches. One of them, like the new cable termination, we are seeing more and more the cables not really only using the cable landing station to be the end point of termination, but really interconnecting between neutral data centers and the end point where they can really be able to exchange with all the ecosystem immediately. All the capacity that I mentioned, we're privately interconnecting via cross connections. So a very dense system where you can immediately, as soon as you arrive with a new cable, you can interconnect with all the players in that particular market. The edge-based open cable system, so the idea of creating this continental edge that is really the point where that cable can split in all directions. Lisbon has been so far one of the main examples that we have, but we are seeing Genoa, Bordeaux, and of course also Barcelona making great steps ahead on being these continental edge locations. Not too far, we have invested also, and we have a major plan really to interconnect with Africa, and we are creating the same in Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire through our one of our last acquisitions, main one, that really already has that interconnection with Africa. And of course, the Cloud Exchange Fabric, more of an SDN solution to be able to interconnect even faster and be able to reach absolutely everywhere around the world in the same moment that you interconnect with the platform. On the Equinix ecosystems, like I told, we have several cases like in LA4 where the data center itself holds all the equipment coming from the sea. So the PFEs and SLTs, I don't want to get too technical, but the truth is were commonly equipments that will stay in the cable landing station and now are really directly on the data center and are the crossing point of all connectivity. RTE, it's another example that we have in the APAC region. Main one, like I mentioned, currently with direct connectivity directly from Lisbon to Africa. Genova, also a very interesting case. We will talk about it later and with more details for sure, but really a new landing point that can increase the resilience in the entire region. And Barcelona, also one of the ones that we joined to deliver that capacity directly on the Mediterranean and be able to build that bridge between one side of the peninsula and the other side to serve the Atlantic. In Lisbon, basically, like I told, we have all the cables connecting directly to our data center, and from there the main trunks on the continent. Currently, with more than 40 carriers present in the data center. It's a very dense ecosystem where you can really interconnect in all directions. High density solutions, we are really able, and probably we'll talk a little bit more on the data center session about how density is really changing those days. And no doubt that these new deployments, these new large deployments of cables between Europe, Latin America, and Africa will connect through Portugal, not only by historical reasons, but it's really a central point to address Europe. And I mean, in both directions, not only companies in Europe and on our locations will be able to serve Africa with new services, but African telcos can also count on these particular locations and strategic locations to reach all the content they need on the European side. And I will thank you so much for hearing me, and let's start the next session. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carlos, and that was really, really impressive. And let's see if everything was so clear for everybody in the room. Do you have any questions for Carlos? They still need to wake up, I guess, right? It was so good. Well, I have one. Because and I know, I mean, in Portugal here, and you want to build it at a major hub, and with the help, of course, of Anacom and Altice and everybody else, you're working since years very hard on this to achieve this. What do you think will be, let's say, in the future, your biggest challenge? Is that education? Is that making sure that there are enough services and that you're not just a transit hub? But what do you think from your point of view is, let's say, your biggest challenge?
Well, I believe that there are a group of conditions that you need to meet really in order to promote the growth that we all want. Probably starting with the regulatory environment has to be really adapted to act fast, to be able to be easier, not so bureaucratic. So I believe that's a very, very important point. The second point, not too long ago, the capacity that Portugal had to offer in data center wise was I should say, not enough for the growth that we are seeing now. I'm seeing more and more players and new projects and very interesting new deployments that can bring and address all the requirements that we are seeing from the stakeholders. That's for sure one of the points. And I believe the last one should be, and it's really a challenge, and has been for all our lives quite difficult to promote the capacity that we have. We have it there, it's underground, it's underwater, but we have a challenge ahead that is really to break that almost silence that we have.
I would say, don't be shy. Just shout it out in the world. Educate them. Let the people know that you're there, what services you have, to all together, work together, make a big platform, a marketing size, just to promote it really, not only, let's say, in the Mediterranean or in Africa, no, worldwide. Go big.
That's why
And don't be shy. You're too nice. You're too nice. It's war out there. You need to fight for your spot. And even that a lot of hubs and especially Lisbon. I mean, Marseille is Marseille and Biboba. But you know what? Why? Tell me. Why couldn't you take a piece of that cake, and a big piece of that cake? Or why not Barcelona? Or why not Genoa? Why not? You see? So it's also something that don't be shy.
No, I believe regulatory is the point. It's for sure a point.
So it's his fault. It's your fault.
I will give him the word right after, so he can defend himself.
It's your fault, Joshua. Did you just hear? He said it twice, actually.
I heard 3 times.
3 times. He called you before already, or what?
And really, I agree with Carlos. It is a point. And we are trying to also to overcome this. First, in terms of licensing and permits. For sure, we want to speed up all the process. And what we are doing and promoting is the creation of a electronic portal with just one contact point, and the applicant will deal with him. We'll see from the very beginning all the workflow that he will have to follow.
So to improve the process, actually.
We are promoting this. And also in parallel, we are also promoting the creation of corridors for submarine cables. And those corridors will be pre-licensed with some conditions, and will be special zones for protection of submarine cables. We do believe with those in parallel, and those in parallel, perhaps you could, for sure, will speed up the process. Who knows if in medium term, if an applicant will take 3 or 4 months to have his license complete.
That's in the future, in the perfect world, right?
That I believe that will happen soon than later in Portugal.
They want to know when. When will that be
Depends
established?
on me. We'll have a lot of public entities are involved. What we'll have to do is to put everybody in the same way and point, and spending their energy in just in this. That's not easy. Please don't have the picture that Portugal is a mess for license. It is not.
I live in Italy, trust me.
Yeah. It is much better than
Whoa.
and we are very well placed in that situation. But we want to be much better. That's for sure.
No, and of course, I was teasing you a little bit because I know. I mean, I'm doing some consultancy for regulators, and then next to me is another consultant. But I know how difficult it is, even for the regulator, to make sure that, let's just pinpoint on the legal part of it. You know how long it takes before they can sign it off. because I know the regulator wants to go. I mean, there's a huge demand, and you're being pulled by the operators, by everybody. I understand this, but also we should understand. And sorry for teasing you a little bit, Jose, but you know me, I love that. Is that you know, it is quite difficult. And on the other hand, the competition is not sleeping, so you need to move. You need to move. You need to make it easier, more accessible, to have the procedures in place quicker than the rest, because it's a fight out there. And but I know what kind of demand you have, and that it's not always easy. I know. So George, and now
Yeah.
from your point of view, because
I was just going
you're
to
going to
take-
make it more difficult for.
Yes, of course. I was going to take Carlos' opportunity, the opportunity that he gave me to hit a little bit more our regulator. No, just kidding. No, I think what Jose just spoke about is something that is drawing the attention from investors. I was asked several times, are you going to move with it? Because this is really important for the industry, and this would make me think seriously of landing my cable in Portugal. So I think it's really it's honorable to have this movement right now, both of those, both the one-stop shop, but also to have corridors that we can use, even if they are not being used by a submarine cable, we can have those in place. So this is something that it's honorable, but we need to move forward because investors are looking to us, and they want to use.
They just move to another hub.
Yeah.
And let's, I mean, this is the situation quickly in Portugal, just to give you an overview of this one. But for instance, we have Takahiro here with us, and Aki, who have, let's say, also a global vision on this one. And Takahiro, if I may ask you to join us, I mean, do you see around the world, especially with NTT, do you see the same issues? Can you recall those issues?
Okay. If I am to talk about the choice of landing sites, I see some problems kind of everywhere. Licensing issues. Licensing tends to be complicated and longer, which is very problematic. And the of course, stakeholder management, that's another headache, especially fishermen. If you are to choose a landing site, you need to identify the stakeholders, and if the fisherman is so difficult, then you might not be able to land the cable. And that's what I observe while I'm in charge of new cable construction. Also, some regulation issues. If the power supply is scarce, or if there is any regulations on land use, then the permitting procedure tends to be kind of long and confused. That's the headache that the operator has currently. Am I answering your question?
Absolutely. So actually, what you're saying, Takahiro, is it's everywhere around the world. It's the same, roughly.
Roughly, yes.
And it always takes too long. But you know what we just learned here is that Anacom is, it will be fast, guys. Within a couple of months, you will have your license, right?
What happened this year? But I hope next year we'll have something. For instance, for the corridors, we'll begin with Sinch. That will be the first one, and we'll want to extend that concept to Carcavelos, Seixal, and Zimbra.
No, I'm just sad.
No,
Let him talk.
And he wants, and he is willing to have them. But we are not just talking about the Portuguese mainland, but also Azores and Madeira Island. And we'll extend that concept to everywhere. We have a very long coast in the mainland, but don't forget that the Azores are in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and Madeira is 1,000 kilometers south from here. And that means we have a huge zone. And just to use in a rational way all the platform. We have place for submarine cables, wind farms, you name it.
Yeah.
But we'll have to order all these. But the submarine cables corridors are in our agenda. That's for sure.
Top priority, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, because you know what's mentioned on the dollar bill, right? In God we trust. You know what you know what we now put on the Portuguese euro? In Anacom we trust. What do you think?
It's up to you.
Okay, Aki, let's go to you. I mean, you have this global view. You have a lot of let's say projects around the world. You just won a new project as well again. So congratulations on that one. So what is your take on what the guys are saying? How can they improve? What can be faster? What can be, be better? Or what should they watch out for? And on the investment side, I will come. We will come.
Yeah, it's actually, we discussed about the corridors and the cable protection zones last year as well here in Cascais, and it's actually very welcome news that the processes are being shortened. It is a global problem getting permits and regulatory matters in place, and it was Portugal who also drove the European Digital Gateway platform during the Portuguese presidency in EU, which is another great example, which will bring a lot of benefits to the whole EU. So Portugal is really, I would say, Portugal is leading in the submarine cable front on making things better. It might be also because of the Equinix report made by Google and Copenhagen Economics, because I think that was the eye-opener for also politicians and decision makers to understand what the cable is really all about. And it is if you haven't read it, it is actually very excellent report on describing what the cable system is, what are the benefits, not only economical benefits, but the social benefits of the cable system. So these advancements, because the permitting around the world, it can be from 3 months or even, let's say, 4 weeks to 3 years. And in some cases, you don't even know the outcome. So after 3 years, it might be said that, yeah, sorry, you chose the wrong partner and you can't do it. And investors don't really like that. They want the predictability.
Thank you. Now, I want to stay with you, Aki, because we already mentioned a couple of times investment. Let me elaborate a little bit on this one. So, Aki, the new investment opportunities to meet the submarine market demands. I mean, what do we see? What's out there? What's new? What are the demands in the region, and how can we address that? Plus, on these on the models, do you see any changes on financial models? So actually those are 7 questions for him, so we can go for coffee now. And yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, as we all know, the demand is growing all the time. It's growing tremendously. Our society, we all are dependent on connectivity, no matter what we do in our personal lives, in our businesses, and that's really driving the need for connectivity, and not just connectivity. And there as well, like it was just stated, that we also need diversity. So it's not enough anymore that Lisbon becomes a hub. That really doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't answer to the demand. The connectivity needs to be spread so that it's actually secure and supporting the businesses, because the businesses running on IT platforms, they are extremely critical, and any outage that could be caused. That's why I'm also happy about the cable protection zones, because the landings are really the key and the most vulnerable point in the cable system. But yeah, we need to build a lot more diversity. That's there is a lot of happening right now in Sines and all around the Portuguese coast. Genoa is coming up. Barcelona, maybe Valencia will shine as well. I see a lot of potential there, and of course the whole Northern African coastline. then when it comes to the financing and models on that one, I think we're about to see quite a dramatic change in that one. In the past, of course, we have had this consortium cable systems, then we have a private cable systems, which is more like becoming a trend or a hybrid model. But what is right now changing that majority of the investments have been lately made by the hyperscalers. And now it turns out that we're kind of happy because the capacity, the cable operators or developers sold to the hyperscalers, that capacity actually never came back to the market. So it was kind of a non-competing. They were just buying huge amount of capacity. But what we are now seeing is that they're actually starting to sell the excess capacity. And that's going to change the market quite a bit because they have tons of capacity, available capacity, and they keep investing. They're not really actually the hyperscalers. They're not really interested in subsea cables. They're not really even interested in the data centers that they would build their own. But actually, the industry kind of forced them to do that because there was nobody could actually answer their demand because they don't even know what the demand is. It's very unpredictable. So, but that is the big change I'm seeing right now. What's happening, and that's also going to affect on the financing models. That who are the users? I think the data centers will become next hyperscalers probably in the subsea systems, and of course many others.
Okay, well, it's nice that he just threw a curveball right on the table here. So it's nice to hear. George, is he right, or is he just?
No, I think that is a trend that we've been seeing in the industry. I would say it's more clear on the last 5 years. Hyperscalers are the driver of demand right now for international traffic.
So finally we woke up, right? All the operators, we finally woke up and said, oh, maybe, yeah.
So
Oops.
that is a game changer, and that has been a game changer in terms of the investments in subsea. We see Google investing most of the times on their own.
We just saw it in the presentation of Carlos. In all the new cable systems which are coming there, there's always Google, Meta,
Google and Meta, they are the most active in this area.
Strange.
I'm not saying that Microsoft or AWS, they are not active, but they work in a different way than Meta and Google. And even Meta and Google, they work different from each other. We see Google most of the times taking decisions on their own, and then whoever wants to come in, please come in, we have excess capacity. So, and at this time, we were still speaking of dark fiber and spectrum, not waves. And this might be the next step, which is they will be selling that excess capacity in waves. So the other thing is when you compare it with the way Meta has been doing business, is you see Meta most of the times working on a consortium type model. I'll let you think which is the most successful one. I don't intend to answer that, but coming back to that, of course, for traditional operators, this is a huge impact. They and I'm talking about me also.
You're one of them.
We were the owners of 95% of the international traffic, and now we are the owners of probably between 25 to 30%. Of course, capacity is always capacity demand is always growing, and so also the total volume. But nevertheless, this has a huge impact. And if we look into a traditional operator and the amount of investment it has to make in all the services and all the networks it is deploying, be it in a wholesale level or at a retail level, of course, there is they can be much more competitive, and they can be much more agile when taking decisions than traditional operators. And then you have the specific cable operators, the ones that are building like Equinix, for example, and we see that they are also active in the market. But now, more and more, it's just like you said, you always see Google You always see Meta. You'll see Microsoft later coming in. And so this is a trend that is difficult to see where it will end. But this is a trend right now. Let me just add that in terms of what we've been looking for right now, and for Portugal, but for all other hubs also, is flexibility. And this is something that might have lacked in Lisbon and in Portugal for several years. And what we are doing right now is try to put that flexibility in the market. You want to interconnect into the cable landing station, you interconnect into the cable landing station. You want to do it in a interconnection data center, you'll do it there. You want to do it in a teleport, even in a teleport with satellite gateways, you do it there. Or you do it in an hyperscaler data center. So this kind of flexibility is something that will attract more investment. And of course, the diversity. And Portugal right now has 4 cable landing stations, and it has a lot of data center investment, not only in Sines, but also in the Lisbon metro area. So I think all of this is
No, absolutely, and the partnering is an important point which you mentioned, but we'll come to that. Any comment on the?
Yes, I believe George just said it all. Flexibility and really promoting what we have is really the 2 key words, I believe, can change everything. We saw that we were somehow blocked 5-10 years ago. And the truth is now we are opening doors to be able to build anything, anywhere, in any time frame. And really, when we were able to do so, we saw how the market reacted. And we saw new cables entering. We had something like 10 years where there was nothing. And from 1 minute to the other, we have more capacity. Well, our capacity between Portugal and Africa went from 5 to 400. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. The truth is also all that excessive capacity. I'm also looking forward to see what happens. Of course, there will be price pressure from one side, from an economical perspective for companies that really invest. It will be more challenging. It will be also fostering the digital development, because basically you have more competitiveness. You will have more players in the market, and we will be able really to deploy at a speed that we would never be able to do it before. Being on the interconnection, being on subsea cables, being on data centers, we are seeing it happen in every direction. And working close with the hyperscalers is for sure a recipe that we are all using. That's nothing to say more there. And I believe it's absolutely mandatory in order to make it competitive. Even if we see only Portugal landscape, it doesn't make sense for companies in Portugal to go and put their data on the cloud in the middle of Europe. It doesn't make sense really to have data going to be processed elsewhere. So to ensure the right environment, that 2 steps, the flexibility and the capacity of accelerating those projects, are absolutely mandatory for our growth here in Portugal.
Okay, Takahiro, from your point of view, do you see around you, let's say, new investments opportunities, and maybe we can put into account, let's say, the sustainability, and with subsea cables, I would not call it a green environment, because I'd rather call it blue, right? Because the sea is blue, right? So I would, except of course, very beautiful places like Sardinia and Caribbean, where he just came back from, and with a jet lag. And Takahiro, what do you see around you?
Okay, so we discussed the demand generated by hyperscalers and their involvement or their participation in the subsea market. And certainly we see that they are becoming more powerful. And there may be some opinion that operators are now kind of beaten by hyperscalers, and I do not think so. They are competitors, and they are also our customers. And in a certain cable project, we work together forming a consortium. And if they are a user, or if they, they may invest huge amount of money to the cable system, but who maintains? That's the question. They may be good at constructing the new cables, but when it comes to day-to-day operations, telecom operators or cable landing station operators have absolute advantages. So I think they are, in a sense, complementary in the market. And as for investment opportunities and the sustainability, in a case, I mean, we are not that's so clear in the sustainability compared with data centers, but in the sustainability we can kind of profitability and sustainability can cohabitate, in my opinion. And say we can diversify the source of, say, power, procuring some power from green energy, alternative energy, green energy, or we can improve the cable landing facilities to be more eco-friendly. That's the way we can be sustainable. That's what we are doing now. Back to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. George, you mentioned partnerships and you as well. So and maybe for you, George, the first one. Do you see the new partnership models between the cable operators and the subsea cable operators and the hyperscalers? And if so, what impact will it have? What do you see? And then to you, I should say, how will it? Are you happy with it? If so, yes or not so? Please, first for you, to make it easy.
So I think the partnerships are something that it is what enables the business.
But are they really happening? That's what I want to know, because we always say, yeah, we should partner together, we should work together. Yeah, we're gonna put our shoulders under it and we're gonna do it.
I think they are,
Okay.
At least in some of the systems that I'm seeing happening. I see it working. Okay, of course there are models and models, there are systems and systems, because even for same investor in different systems, the models are different. And just as I said before, you see that some of the hyperscalers, they tend not to go directly to partnering, but some are doing that, and are doing that in a very successful way.
Do they mind? Because do they really care about data centers? Do they care about the No. Let's put it on the table now. That's why we're sitting here.
Yeah, I'll let Carlos add
I will
something on
compliment
that.
George.
And then Aki will pump in.
Aki might.
No, I will compliment. We have some excellent examples inside Equinix where we really partner with hyperscalers, and we have something currently like 70 locations. We call it X-scale locations, where we really are developing it, working end by end with particular hyperscalers. So there are no doubt partnerships, and they work, at least on the data center landscape. I believe that in the subsea we are seeing more and more, for instance, Google that has that approach of making the investment and then make the partnerships. We saw it on Equiano. Basically, when it was announced, it was Google, nothing else. And now you have their Liquid, you have their WIOCC, you have their Namibia Telecom, you have their. So it's really happening, and I believe on both sides, you know.
So that's a good example.
It's a good example, and even if you take our own example also as Equinix, the investments that we are now doing, really expanding into Africa, we go end by end with the hyperscalers. We know exactly what are the markets that we both want to target, where is the potential, where we can combat digital divide, where can we really contribute to foster growth. So I believe that collaboration is happening. Agree with George, not equal with all the hyperscalers. We just try to put
And with
them all in
different
the same
impacts.
bag, but they aren't.
And with
Okay.
different impacts. And let me interrupt you just to add
Yeah.
this. I think that the partnerships are happening, and just as Takahiro said, the hyperscalers are being the enablers of a lot of things, and this is good for them, and it's good for the cable operators. Okay. When we talk about a serious partnership, sometimes it is happening, sometimes it is not. Sometimes we all have our business and we all have second intention. But you see that right now, even at the terrestrial long-haul level, the construction of new long-haul routes is happening between hyperscalers and cable operators in partnership, because that is the next step for them, for hyperscalers. They understand that, and cable operators also understand that they will be the enablers of more connectivity, more diversity, because this is, well, our motto right now, right? Diversity, redundancy, resilience. So I see that happening, but I'm keen to see how it will move forward in the future.
Aki?
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, there are partnerships, and there's hardly no cable system, especially a larger cable system, where there's no partnering at all. Especially if you're connecting, and that's why the consortium model, for example, that was the way to go in the past. So when the local incumbents and the governments invested into the cables through the local incumbents, that was all about partnership. And it's still there, because when you need to connect different countries, you probably need to have a local partner, unless you are a global company. And yeah, I do also see that we now talk about the hyperscaler, but I also see now the telecom operators getting back to the game. Like Sayo announced last week a connection from Manchester to New York. So this is really starting, and I know quite a few others who are really looking into investing into the cables, because the market is there. We have so many cables that are becoming, even here in Lisbon, we have cables that are starting to be at the end of life. So the warranty period is starting to go over. It's not anymore feasible to grow their capacity and do the capacity upgrades, because they're so old cables. So building a new cable is more economical to get the cost per bit down. But then also in some parts, I'm not saying it's here, especially in the Lisbon region, but I'm a big believer as well on the public-private partnerships, PPPs, especially when we go and building up the diversity. That is a very key, because the diversity usually means that you have to build it somewhere where there is no business, and that's why the normal economical kind of a decision can't really happen. Reasoning. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jose?
I'd like to comment.
Please.
I'd like to comment on this. First, you are talking about partnerships between cable ownership in what regards cable ownership. And I believe we are seeing some movements. For instance, the operators consortium does not work in the Atlantic, but it's still working in other regions. Nevertheless, now what we are seeing in the Atlantic is one is the OTTs, the hyperscalers. They build their cables, but they are sharing that capacity with operators. Meta is doing that, and Google, I believe, is doing that also. But we have also neutral operators that are offering their cables, and we have very good examples here in Portugal with the Ela-Link and Medusa, and perhaps a third one from Ireland to Portugal. Perhaps that will happen also. Once again, it's a neutral wholesale operator that will be selling and renting capacity to OTTs or to everybody else in a transparent way. And that is good for in the point of view of the regulator. But we have another case also, and you mentioned the public and private partnership, and we have all that case. We have a very good example of that with the future Atlantic CAM that will interconnect Portugal mainland, Azores and Madeira. And that is not a PPP, but it's a 100% state-owned, because it represents a market failure, and it was not a good business case for any private. But we are having some movements or that. But what I was expecting to hear was, are the new owners of the submarine cables the same owners of data centers, or a hyperscaler data center? And because if that happens, I don't know how a regulator can respond to that. Will represent that a significant market empowerment for just one entity. How can we regulate that? I don't know, really.
Well, that's a really nice one. Thank you for that curveball. No, it is not easy, but things are possible. Just delay your license. That's easy. I mean, that's what we do in Italy, right?
No, but I think we're fooling ourselves. They
Absolutely.
already have
Wake up.
a market approach that it's completely vertical. So if we don't look at that, it doesn't matter if they will, if a certain player will add the data center to the subsea. It's already vertical. It's completely integrated. So I think on that one, I think we're fooling ourselves. What I see in terms of the investment also in terms of the hyperscalers versus the traditional cable operators is that hyperscalers, they are investing mostly on the main routes. We are talking about Trans-Pacific, Transatlantic, Europe to Asia, and Africa to Europe. These are the main routes where they are investing. And all the other routes, and these are the routes that Jose was talking about, the smaller routes, the ones that will connect to underserved areas, or the ones that are, at least right now, don't present the same amount of interest as an hyperscaler can see on a certain route. Those ones will be held by private cable operators, by the traditional communication service providers, as we see with the Link, with Medusa, with the Pisces. So these are usually smaller routes, although Link is connecting South America to Europe, but usually smaller routes. And we can see that with the Angola cables, also with the connection between Africa and Brazil. It's the same. But as long as there's opportunities, companies will look at investment. And we, also from our side, we are looking at investing on subsea. So, but this is a bit different from this huge impactful routes.
Okay. All right. Just a quick one, subsea, but I also want to look at the MTN, so the non-terrestrial networks, and then but in combination with the terrestrial networks. And maybe just a quick thing from you, because we're running out of time here. Can we? I mean, talking about HAP and LEO satellite constellations. Of course, we have let's say the issues there. Do you think we can overcome them, and if so, how?
Submarine cables really dominate the world currently. 99% of everything that goes along it's submarine cables. New technologies and new very disruptive technologies like low orbit satellites are trying to challenge it. I believe in a mesh environment will really appear. We are all waiting to see what will be the adoption in the world of the services coming from low orbit satellites. No doubt they will be a part of the ecosystem. They always have been the satellite communications. If they will get more share on what is really international connectivity, I have doubts. In my point of view, I believe it will work as another component on the ecosystem. No doubt that we need to be prepared and we need to really integrate them. And we have George for sure can share his experience in Portugal where that interconnection is happening, and we need to foster it to be able to really go in all direction, interconnect on every player, being able to reach everywhere. So that's basically what the world wants it fast. It's new technologies. We should be, of course, looking at it integrated in the same view that we have for submarine cables. I will leave George to really bring more details.
So on the non-terrestrial networks and looking at satellite operators and with GEO, MEO, and LEO orbital operations, what we see is that the amount of technology that was put into this in the last few years is huge, and it's incredible. Okay, a lot of money coming from deep pockets, yes, but also for traditional satellite operators. What we see is that they also are transforming themselves. You see SES, for example. You see Eutelsat entering the business with OneWeb, and with Starlink. Really deep pockets, Project Kuiper from Amazon, and all of this, fortunately, I think we have almost all of them with us here in Portugal, which is good. But still to see one thing, which is right now, I feel, and because I work with both of them, I feel that the backs are turned to each other still. Although they are completely complementary, they are a complement to each other. They still have their backs turned to each other. But then there is AWS. Suddenly, well, I'm a subsea investor, Kuiper, then data center, cloud services, well, vertical. So this is one thing. Let's make them more close to each other. Let's make this interconnection work better. And the other thing is, in terms of technology, the way we've been looking at this is that the LEO satellites, the possibility of launching 60 satellites on one turn, and then I'll get the rocket back and we'll launch 60 other next to it. And this working on a cycle brought an opportunity to the satellite space industry that wasn't there in the past. And the amount of case studies you have is huge. You see data, you see IoT, and if you imagine IoT on Trans-Pacific and Transatlantic, it's huge. But although this is small amounts of data, but this represents, in terms of revenue, a really good share. So they will continue to evolve. And now we are seeing players that do direct-to-device connectivity without you having to change your mobile phone. Your mobile phone will work right now with direct-to-device.
Nicely disruptive services are coming.
Yeah.
Are we ready for it? What do you think?
This is actually more for the regulator, because I see quite a bit of a regulatory issues and the framework on operating the hubs and the satellite. That I think that is because, like you said, it came so suddenly, and I'm not sure if we are really prepared of having those. I know locations that the regulators are really looking into that. Hey, what is our position on this one? I see a big use of in airline and the maritime industries for these services, but yeah, they will, of course, they will never take away the benefits of the proper fiber cable network. But there is definitely IoT and so on, and this airlines and the maritimes. That's where I see the biggest use. But I'm not sure if we are really ready for that yet of having all these connections.
Let me just share this. I was in a conference where a company told we are ready to do direct to device. And suddenly it's like, look, if I was that company in this panel, suddenly it's like you never existed. You never existed in Takahiro. So the attention was drawn to that person, to that company, and all the questions in the audience was directed to them. And some were, wow, you're doing that? And then the others were, how are you going to do that? Have you talked to the regulator? How will you use the license for the spectrum? So, etc. And so it was quite, I was not ready for this. So how come are you telling me that you're ready to do direct to device?
You want to quickly comment on this one? Because they're pinpointing on you. What is wrong today with you? How come? They should be
First.
nice. Be nice to the guy. Come on.
First, I'm a cable guy.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm not very sure about the success of this. It will depend on the bandwidth.
Are you saying that process for those licenses will be very?
No. I'm not involved. I'm not involved in the.
Oh, yes, you are. Oh, yes.
In the license for submarine cables, yes, I'm guilty. But about the other things.
Go to the coffee machine, talk to your colleague. It will work.
I won't. But it will depend on the bandwidth that we'll have it at what price and quality. If it will be better than 5G, perhaps will be a success. But I really have some doubts. For instance, for IoT, that's marvelous. But for the 5G traffic, normal, the data that you normally consume, it depends on the download, the speed that we'll have it.
George, may I interrupt? George
Now the
really
panel
said
is
it.
starting. Eh?
No,
Now it's starting. eh?
Oh, George really said it. They complement each other, and it's a major breakthrough when we think of coverage, because you will be covering the entire globe without any major restrictions. It's still a challenge on bandwidth. Latency improved greatly, no doubt, but in my point of view, will never compete with submarine cables, or will never compete to.
They don't need to. They don't need to.
No,
They
will compete in the access and the fast access, but competing with submarine cables and transmitting huge data, transmission data over the ocean, it's impossible.
Takahiro, do you see the same? Do you agree with the guys, or do you have a
Yes.
complete different vision on it?
I mean, I share the same view as yours. I mean, say, are you able to imagine where those satellite cable surpasses in terms of volume in the Trans-Pacific? That's impossible, I would say. If you don't have a wired access, then satellite can be a very important tools of the transmitting data. But when it comes to these, whether there is a competition with satellite and submarine cables, I don't believe at this moment.
Okay, thank you. So, guys, we're running out of time, and the people organizers are, he's tough on me. Yeah. And we're getting hungry, probably, right? Because George is putting money out of it to sponsor the lunch later on. So we'll have to move on. So he's looking at me as well, like. Anyway, quick round. Takahiro, can I start with you? What's there to expect? Maybe you can share something with the audience. Well, what's your glass ball prediction for the future,
All right.
midterm or long term?
Okay.
All
right. Currently, we see the extreme capacity shortage in the Indo-Pacific area. So that's why we are constructing, and that will continue for a while. tech are certainly reducing the spending, but you can't imagine where the each household reduces the digital spending. So I would say that the trend will continue, and we continue constructing the cables.
Okay,
That's a short answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Jose, what's your glass ball prediction? What will happen?
Let me say like this, within 10 years, perhaps less than that, perhaps won't be person here. We'll be communicating, having holograms of ourselves here. And for sure, for that purpose, we'll have to have much more submarine cables.
Well, in 10 years, I hope to be in my house in Bali and have the best and have
Please.
7G, you know, that's what I want to have.
Yeah, but we'll have every 10 years, we'll have another G. And the existing submarine cables with the 25 years lifetime, they will have to also to support 6G and perhaps 7G.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. George, quick prediction.
So what we'll see is what Aki was saying. We'll have more and more hubs because diversity will continue to be key and capacity will continue to grow enormously. And just coming back, we'll see mobile backhaul in places like Namibia, Botswana, Kenya, South Africa, Angola.
Even DCR.
Being brought by satellite operators with bandwidths that you cannot even imagine. So
Okay, thank you. Aki?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more subsea cables, and not only on the main routes, but really the diverse route, and looking into new ways of connecting such through the Arctic. What I'm hoping to see as well, that the last non-connected continent, Antarctica, will be connected, because that's going to impact our lives so much when we can get the data out of there. So I hope that will start to happen.
So push connect the unconnected, right? Final last statement of the morning opening session. The floor is yours, Carlos.
Thank you so much, my friend. I see no doubt more ups. That's for sure. No doubts there. In Equinix, like I said, we are expanding and creating like Genoa, Barcelona. Now with all the investments coming in Nigeria, coming in Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, we just announced South Africa to be ready in Johannesburg for next year. So for this region, Africa will be the main driver. I have no doubts there. I cannot even perceive in my dreams what does it mean. So Nigeria, with 200,000 people, more mobile phone users than the US. How this will grow.
I always said the US is just an island, right?
And the truth is, we are building extremely great ranks on major roads to serve Africa. Currently, we are talking about, okay, so there's excellent capacity. I don't know for how long. It's really hard to predict. So that's probably one of the hardest points that we need to be prepared. We really need to be prepared to act with that flexibility that you mentioned. If you look at the next 3 years, the RFS list for new cables, we all know that the Pacific is the one receiving currently more investments on new cables. We know that at the Atlantic and this particular location where we are serving the South Atlantic, during the next 2 years, we'll have the RFS to Africa. We'll have Medusa going to the Mediterranean. But my point is, the moment is now. We cannot wait 10 years. And we know that if that excess capacity is going to be there for 5 or 10 years, then we will not have new projects arising on the next 10.
Planning.
Absolutely. Planning is
money.
It's mandatory, and acting with flexibility, with capacity to promote, it's now. The moment for Portugal is now.
Absolutely. So any question for the Portugal guy from the audience? Stop
They are also
looking at
Portuguese
your,
guys.
I know, but stop looking at your phone. Come on, be nice. No questions. Then ladies and, there you go. Emmanuel, please, short one because we're hungry.
No, it's more than a question. It's a comment. You were speaking about satellite. I learned something from Newton, which is everything which is in the air will come to the ground one day or no. So even if it's in the air, it will come back to the ground. And so you will need to have fiber, subsea cables, and data center to serve it.
You know what? I'm an old guy, and there was always a song, which was called "Love Is in the Air." Some of you, they still remember this, but you're right, and Newton was right. So thank you so much. Anyone want to comment on this one? Yep. You? No?
Well done.
Okay. Then there is another question from the lady. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
just a small question to address regulation and also to try and give a help to Jose. Going into the question of if cable operators start also tying or bundling their offers to data centers, and if there is a regulatory answer for that, I would say there is. So BEREC is already studying the possibility of the Data Act, which is being under assessment at the EU level, being supervised by the telecoms regulator, for example, because the telecoms regulator would be at the best position to oversee all the competencies that are set out in the Data Act. And given that data center providers deal mainly with cloud services, this would be a solution that would be already on track. So there's no void in the regulation. And I am a very suspect person to talk about this because I'm a regulatory lawyer. So I usually litigate against regulators.
Normally, yes.
Normally, yes.
Sorry for that. I had to, sorry.
Yes, but also another question now litigating against regulators. Submarine cable corridors. This is a very nice idea. It's very beautiful. But
Here we go.
do you really believe it's something that we could have in the near future, considering all the stakeholders that will have to agree and all the coordination that will have to be put in place to achieve this? For example, and taking the satellite business as an example, I just a couple of weeks ago, I was at a workshop that was organized by Anacom, and one of the examples that was given was the launch of the Virgin rocket. So it took 1 year for a series of sector-specific regulators to come together and agree on all the aspects that had to be taken into account for the launch to take place. So going into the implementation of cable submarines and all the aspects that have to be taken into consideration: energy, environment, land rights, telecoms authorization. Do you think it's a possibility that we could have a corridor licensing in a year and a half?
First, for the corridor, and I will be, because that's my not expertise, but what I know. I do believe that a normal process of a licensing, permitting of a submarine cable if everything goes smooth and if the applicant knows from the very beginning what he'll have to do, perhaps we'll in Portugal can have less than 1 year. The problem is the surprises that the applicant is having in the process, and then perhaps can have 1 year and a half, but 2 years, I believe it doesn't happen. That means Portugal could be the paradise already for the licensing permits, but we want to change that. You asked if the operators will like the corridors. First, let me explain this. Who decides about the landing point is the operator, is the applicant. The applicant appears and I say, I want a cable to there. And if we have corridors, we can tell him, if you want to use one of those corridors, your process will be speed up by the very beginning, about 4 or 5 months. But you can have and establish your cable outside the corridor. It's up to you. And you can ask, but why those 4 corridors in the mainland? Where are the cable landing stations until now? But if you want a cable landing station in Matosinhos in the north, please use it. And afterwards, we'll have to look at this, and perhaps that will have also a need to put a corridor there, because that will provide more safety, more security, and more competition. The idea is to have a pre-licensed corridor with some steps already done, and I don't know if that will be possible, but ideally is, that corridor, according to the rules of ICPC and so on, rules or recommendations, we can have a dozen cables there. And just for the newcomer, just to picking up one of those routes. That will be lovely for an applicant, I believe. And also we will have the guarantee that we'll be much more protected there than outside the corridor. That's the idea. But once again, who decides is the operator or the applicant that will choose where he wants to land the cable. For Anacom, we are neutral.
Let me just say this really fast. I think it's possible, and it should be possible in Portugal, because Medusa and Barcelona Cable Landing Station have done that in Barcelona. So I don't see why we cannot do it.
Carlos? Yeah, no, just a comment. The corridors are really important because it really expedite the process. But in my point of view, we should go further. You know, the idea is not only to have a expedite process for entering corridors, but for any location. We are seeing that, for instance, like George mentioned, Barcelona was one of those examples. I believe one of the first examples I've ever seen was Marseille, that have everything ready, so you just need to plug it in, and that's it. And it took something like 2 to 4 months, the licensing process. In what you are seeing in new locations, like in Bordeaux, like in Bilbao, you are seeing cable stations and entering points not coming to a single location, but really separated 20 kilometers away. You saw that in the south of Spain. It's legacy infrastructure in south of Spain in that particular case, but you see something like 3 or 4 cable landing stations, like 30 kilometers away, one from the other. So can't we also expedite that ones? In my point of view, we should be really helpful, providing any support and accelerating any process from anyone that wants to enter in Portugal, be in whatever location it may be. Corridors are important, no doubt there.
The problem here is that you have also to have a rational use of the maritime domain. And there are submarine cables, there are energy cables, gasoducts, pipelines, and we'll have wind farms, and we'll have fishing activities, very important. And we cannot have a corridor of 30 kilometers, for instance, from Carcavelos to Zimbra, just for submarine cables. Because in those corridors, we cannot fish, we cannot put anchors, we cannot, that
Yeah.
that you cannot use the maritime domain in that. But we have to have some order in the utilization of the maritime, and that is being worked by the public entity in the DGRM is doing that job. Also, we had the public consultations recently for wind farms and so on. That means everything will be organized. We have a very long coast. We have room for everybody, but we'll have to use it in a good way. That's the idea. If we'll have, for instance, perhaps in Sines, we may have other cable landing stations. I'm not talking about Carcavelos, but Carcavelos, a competitor from yours. And Zimbabwe, but we can have more cable landing stations. But the utilization of the area near the beach will have to be, until now, it's just the operator comes and put the cable there. But perhaps in the future, we'll have to be organized it. But my intention is to be pre-organized and to facilitate the life of everybody. That's the idea.
Okay, quick one, last one.
In my point of view, corridors are a fantastic idea. I have no doubt about it.
Thank you very much.
My point would be, we need to expedite the process itself. Being in corridors or without corridors, or being pink or blue or white, doesn't matter.
Fix it.
We saw, and Takahiro mentioned, it's a global problem. Why not lead the way? We saw the example of Marseille. Let's do the same.
Just
Okay.
to add very fast, in those corridors, you won't see,
Stop.
Eric, in those corridors, you won't see the roots of the submarine cables. We know that is a gray zone where you cannot fish, you cannot anchor, and perhaps there are submarine cables there, but you won't see the routes. That means we'll have much more security, because now the route of the submarine cable in the maps are identified.
It's fast. It's fast.
I'm
I
leaving,
think
by the way.
those
I'm hungry.
those security zones are already in place. We have those in Sesimbra. But okay, just say that you are welcome to come to Altis's sponsored launch.
And with those famous last words, I would like to thank Equinix. I would like to thank Carlos and the team, of course. I would like to thank my panelists, and also Takahiro. I know it was tough staying with us, but you know what? Thank you for staying with us, and thank you for your valuable insights. So thank you.